trip back there. All right. Well, first of all, if I forget to say it, congratulations. A couple of weeks ago, I stopped in to visit with my Aunt Mary. The two of us sat in the shade in our front yard of our farm, in the shade of this big maple tree, watching the barn swallows dip in and out of the buildings. And it was one of those spring days that makes you so happy to be alive that you tingle. My uncle, her husband, had died back in March, and my Aunt Mary was talking about their life, their plans, how so much had just changed for her. And toward the end of that conversation, she paused for a long time, and then she said to me, "You know, Joe, you just don't know what life is going to be like, and it's not what you think." I was flattered when you asked me all here tonight, but I was also overwhelmed because I want to tell you everything I know. I only have a few minutes, and if I have to choose, I think that thing to tell you is as good as anything other. You don't know what life is going to be like, and it's not what you think. I think back to my own graduating class. We were a lot like you. There were 400 of us, and we were sitting in a gym like this, and like you, we were full of passions, filled with ability, and like you, we were brimming with that power and beauty that's particular to youth. And like you, we all sat planning the futures we were on the cusp of. But there's a Yiddish saying you might have heard: when man makes plans, God laughs. Or maybe you've heard Mike Tyson's version: everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. One thing I learned from watching my 400 classmates these last 20 years is that your plans will get derailed. You will lose jobs, your goals will stay stubbornly on the horizon, there will be illness and loss, and people that you love will be taken from you. There will be moments in your life where everything will change in an instant. You just don't know what life is going to be like, and it's not what you think. I'm not the first person to tell you that life can be unfair, and I'm not the first person to tell you that it can sometimes be cruel. But just in case you haven't heard it before, I want to make sure that you don't leave high school tonight without someone telling you that life can also be so good. And that's why I want to take a few minutes I have this evening to make an argument for optimism. It comes in 4 short parts. Part 1, you're lucky to be here. I don't mean that you're lucky to be here graduating from Kimberly High School, although you are. And I don't mean you're lucky to be here surrounded by the people that you love tonight, although you are. I mean here on planet Earth in the 21st century. I noticed this when I was 8 years old. I was riding the bus home after school, watching the passing fields, and this wave of gratitude broke over me. I remember looking out the window and having this stunning realization that I was alive and getting goosebumps. Think, just by being here, you've won a lottery with infinitesimally small odds. For you to exist today has required a string of miraculous biological good fortune. Every one of your ancestors, back to the origin of life on Earth, and right up to your mom and dad, was sufficiently attractive to meet someone. They were competent enough to woo them, and they survived long enough to deliver a pair of tiny genetic charges at the exact right moment. Don't think about it too much. To set off the only possible sequence of events that could lead to you. If the timing was a bit different, the circumstances of any of those couplings shifted even the tiniest bit, you would not exist at all. Or worse, you could be your sibling. It's baffling, because when you peer inside yourself and you find that tiny piece of consciousness that feels like you, your existence feels inevitable. But it's not even close. In a mathematical sense, you are so unlikely that you essentially don't exist. But here you are, and I think that's pretty lucky. Part 2. The world and this life are astoundingly beautiful. And once you start looking for that beauty, you won't stop seeing it. When I was a sophomore in high school, we had an intern in our library named Do-Nothing Dave, and one day I asked him for a book recommendation. He saw I was returning Catch-22, and he said, "Have you ever heard of Kurt Vonnegut?" And then he walked me over to a shelf of books that changed my life. I spent my sophomore year reading every book on that shelf, and on the surface, they were science fiction. They were about people who lived on the moons of Saturn, aliens, time travel. What they were really about, though, was everything. They were about life, they were about meaning, they were about death, what it means to be a good person, they were about futility, and they were about love. I went to a high school filled with unbelievably capable people just like you, and I was taught by outstanding teachers who cared, just like the one sitting behind you right now. But that shelf of books was my education. For me, that shelf of books got right into my bones. It changed everything that came after. For you, it'll be something else. You'll be sleeping outside someplace where there seems to be more stars than sky, and for the first time, the universe will feel bountiful. You'll sip tea in some dusty bazaar or slug beer in an outback lean-to and realize that the life you've been living doesn't have to be the life that you live. You'll pull a trout from a stream, polished muscular torsional, or maybe you'll watch a maple seed helicopter its way to the ground, and you'll be stuck to the spot. And that moment will serve forever in your mind as the dividing line between before and after. Part 3, your world is kind. And I know it doesn't always seem like it. When you think of the world, it can feel cold and greedy and fragmented. In your own life, you'll be asked to choose sides, to divide yourself along lines. You'll be asked to define yourself by your religion, your politics, your nationality, your race, your class. But that is mostly noise, and it's made for somebody else's benefit. Because when you think of your world, it isn't confined to the answers you might put on a census form. Your world feels small and warm and intimate. Salman Rushdie says that we should define ourselves broadly. John Green says that we should imagine each other complexly. And when you start doing that, you'll realize that so much more unites us than could ever divide us. We're brothers and sisters. We're parents and children. We value our families, adore our friends, and we seek connection everywhere we go. And that person sitting next to you is the same benefactor of a miraculous string of biological impossibility that you are. And when you realize that, I think the only possible reaction you can have with them is to connect, to treat them with the generosity and loving kindness. Because if we're not here to be kind to one another, I don't know what we're here for. Part 4, the last part, and the shortest. You are well built for this world. You already know this one. You spent the last 18 years sharpening yourself. You've taken hard classes, you've lifted weights, you've showed up for 5 a.m. practice, and you've played your video games on expert. When Muhammad Ali was in the prime of his career, the peak of his fitness, he famously said that he didn't start counting sit-ups until they started to hurt, because the ones that hurt are the only ones that count. We understand that challenge sharpens us. You are sharp, you are capable, you are skilled, confident, courageous, and kind. What could life possibly throw at you? That's it. That's my argument for optimism. Number 1, you are lucky. Number 2, the world is beautiful. Number 3, the world is kind. And number 4, you are well built for it. What Aunt Mary said sitting in the shade of that maple tree was true. You don't know what your life is going to be like, and it won't be what you think. And when we hear that, we imagine all the bad things that might happen. We imagine the illness, we imagine the death, we imagine the loss. But what I'm telling you now is that your life will be defined by moments. And while there will certainly be hard ones, there will be far, far more beautiful ones. You're 8 years old riding the bus and a wave of gratitude washes over you. Life changed. You're 13 and you work up the courage to sit at a different lunch table. Life changed. You're 16 and you ask a library intern for a book recommendation. Life changed. You're 20 and you walk into a random room on a random night after work and lock eyes with a quiet blonde sitting in the corner. Life changed. You don't know what life is going to be like, and it's not what you think. It can be hard, it can be unfair, it can even be cruel, but I think that if you do things well, for the most part, it's awfully good. That's it. I only want to leave you with a bit of advice from that life-changing bookshelf in my own life. Vonnegut writes, "Hello, babies. Welcome to Earth. It's hot in the summer and cold in the winter. It's round and wet and crowded, and on the outside, babies, you've got 100 years here. There's only one rule I know of. God damn it, you gotta be kind." Graduates, I hope you have many, many beautiful moments. I wish you nothing but the best. Congratulations.